Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today we'll be exploring the EDA or exploratory data analysis, and we will be having a look at the New Zealand dataset as I mentioned. And this dataset is from Ministry of Business and Innovation and Employment. And here it's the New Zealand Government Procurement Open Data. I will add in the description and I will add the link in the description, and you can have a look at the datasets available. For this project, we will be exploring the award notices and the product categories. Now, we for this video, we will just be looking for the award notices. Product categories will be in the next video. Now, for the award notices, it's a very simple exploration for today, just to understand what type of columns are we dealing with and what type of data, if there is any relationship or if we are to use certain columns. So for the importing of the data, I decided to go with something really simple, just to be more beginner friendly in case you're just new to Python and you don't want to dealing with the notebook and loading the data into Drive and so on. It's a very simple one. Once you run the code, then you can drag and drop your Excel. Once you can download your Excel from here, and then you can just drag and drop it to the file, then run your code, and then you can just load it. Here is I'm reading the file and then I'm loading it into a data frame. So, okay, so now that we have covered this, in normal working scenario, we would we put it in the files section, or it's in the Jupyter notebook or Databricks. Is different notebooks have different way of doing it, but mostly we would put our data in the file in the folder. So moving on, so we can have our initial look at what type of data we are dealing with. As you can see here, we have the posting agency. This is just different postings. Some government agencies here I'm just grabbing the first head, and we can have a look at the tail. There's different posting agencies, as you can see. WorkSafe New Zealand. Now, for the RFX ID, then it seems like it's a float, but it shouldn't be a float. It should be an integer. So we'll rectify that in perhaps this video or future video. And we it seems like it's a randomly generated or it's a sequence. So we'll have a look at that later. So the RFX type, which is perhaps is the request type. So request for proposals. It seems like it's in the head. It seems like it's one type so far, and here there's request for tenders. So it seems like it's more than one type of options. Now we can have a look at just looking. Let's move on to the tail. There are different types of the one of I just identified, which is the one column, which is the title. So the title is just the type of request, so the heading of the request, which is like there's different types, like for example, health monitoring RFP, behavioral training skills. So it's different type of the request, and the overview perhaps it's what describes the title. So we are looking for purchase holistic health monitoring service for WorkSafe New Zealand's whatever. That's the description. So there's another thing that they tend to do, which add a reference number for that. Sometimes it's missing, so perhaps yeah, we'll look into that. But another thing is the open date. This is when they issue the request, or they issue where they upload this, and then there's a closing date, and then perhaps there is also the awarded date, perhaps the award, which means that once they give the award means they grant them to the contract. So okay, so we can look at the tender coverage. There's sole agency, and then there is all of governments. It's just different categories where this request falls under. Now, in terms of the comments, it seems that it's also optional. And we also the award type. There's awarded, not awarded. Is do we have an A for awarded? Let's have a look. Awarded, not awarded, and awarded. Seems like it's only one type. Let's have a look. Oh yeah. So award amount, awarded. Yeah, it seems like it's a Boolean type of choice. It's either awarded or not awarded. So yeah, so we move on to a different column. Let's say we have an awarded. Comments is different. This is the after they. It seems like it's after they awarded or not awarded. They say contract awarded to X company, which I suspect is a different company. Yep, it's incident compensation. Agency is a different company. ACC, this is ACC, incident compensation, but then it's awarded to May Group. So it's a comment perhaps by the government procurement staff. And then the awarded amount, it seems like we have a lot of zeros. We look into that later. And then the report date, perhaps the report date is when it's initially created. Okay, so let's have a look at what sort of data we are dealing with. So we have two different types of data, which is the object, and we also have the float. Now, if we have a look here, it seems like it's also grabbing the date as a float as well. The ID as well is turning into a float, but it doesn't make sense because ID ends with zero. There is no float value. So it seems it's just the conversion from Excel to data frames what changed it. And then, but if we look at the awarded amount, perhaps that's where we need the float value. So because it's money, so perhaps the dot 50 cent that is added. All right, so let's have a look further. So the date type summary, we can data type summary is this is just we as I mentioned earlier, and we can look at it just in a graph format, just for fun. And for the number of rows, we have a 16,721 rows, 18 columns. And we can also have a look at what is missing. So when we look at what is missing, we tend to see that there's big numbers. So alternative physical tender box delivery address. It seems like this is an optional column in the whatever CRM or whatever website they were using for keying in the data, because there's a lot of data. This is almost like 68, yeah, this is 68 percentage of missing data, so it could be optional. And the comments is also, these are optional, because it's a high number of missing data. So it's of course I'm not related to to New Zealand government, so I'm just having a look. But then if we look at the this 71, so the RFX ID, which I suspect is the primary key, is 71 missing rows all the way to report date. So many missing rows. So let's have a look. Let's investigate that. As you can see, I left some comments here. Artifact ID is 71 missing row, but likely it's a small percentage. Seems like, yep, it's a 42%, 0.424%. So yeah, so this is not 0.4%, it's zero, yeah, 0.4%. So the title is missing 71 rows. This is just a visualization to have a look at what we are missing. It's not entirely necessary for our case, but it's nice to have. So now I am focusing on, or we are focusing on removing the missing rows. So let's start off with what rows. So rows with missing is 71. Places are 0.4%, 42%, and it's 16,000 total rows. And now we are just displaying the missing rows, which are the missing RFX. And as you can see here, it's all missing. So likely that it disappeared or it was lost when the data was loaded from their website to Excel, or perhaps they changed different system and then it was loaded or for the conversion. So yeah, so we move on to removing the rows for the RFX ID since they have a small percentage. And also the ID itself is missing, so we can't really trace back that. The best way to trace back those missing is by perhaps loading another Excel from them and then minusing those two Excels to different data frame and seeing the leftover missing one. But I don't think this is a possibility, and so therefore I'm just removing it. I'm removing the 71 rows, and yeah, so this is the new remaining rows, which covers which we retained 99.58% of that. Now, okay, so all rows RFX ID has been missing. This is, I just did a simple if statement just to check is if it's zero. And then moving on, so this is the new value. This is the new shape. There's no duplicate IDs, so ID seems like it's a unique identifier. Moving on, we still have these columns with too many missing values. For the sake, under my assumption, which is it's an optional field and there's a lot of it missing. So if I just, I'm just not going to choose these. It seems like it's not applying to our use case. So as you can see here is a big percentage missing. So I will just drop these columns here. I just defined the columns and then I just dropped it. And here I'm just viewing the head after I drop it. They're no longer there. And for the text analysis, I am just going to, for first off, we can have a look at the title analysis. And let's find out. So the title itself, we have 16,650 titles. So you can see here, where is the total number? So 16 original rows, we have the 16,650. That means everything is populated. We don't have any missing titles. And so we have zero missing titles, as I mentioned. And the unique titles is 16,423. Now, these are titles that have only been mentioned once, therefore they become unique. But there are titles that are mentioned a few times with the same title. So we'll investigate that shortly. And or they are called duplicate titles. So it's 227 duplicate titles. And here we can just see the mean, median, max number of titles. This is just my concern is the minimum number of characters. So it's four. Perhaps it's a very simple title, I guess. It's for four characters, and also there's long titles as well. So moving on, so here's our title, and we can see the character count here, and its distribution. It seems like the distribution insights, we can see that there's a slight right skew. I think it's because of there are some very long titles that are bringing the average up. So they are moving the mean towards the right instead of right at the center because of the tail here. So moving on, we have very common words. This is the 30 most common words in the title. We can see that school, main, contractor, services, these are just the titles that are mentioned, how many times these words have been mentioned in our data set. And it seems like we have quite a few. So I just put it for word cloud just to have visualize it. Okay, moving on to the sample of the titles, just randomly selected. As you can see here is just like mental health, peer skills, training, main contractor, a conversion, boiler, it's different titles we have, and it seems like it's very diverse. And now I'm just checking for duplicate titles. As you can see here, there are titles that are repeated more than once, and they also have different artifacts ID. And but it's by the same district, and yeah, and its open date is also different. So perhaps they were created repetitively. From what I observed, that it's likely to be reopened due to no response from or extended deadline. So it's recreated. And also, it could be that the project is re-tendered. It's a different tender. And also, it could be that it's a recurring annual project, is a continuous project, and perhaps they created a new title by accident. So I'm just going to decide to keep them, as because they are different artifacts IDs. So perhaps they were created under different categories, and they also have legitimate business reason, as I mentioned. Now, moving on to the fields, there is, as you can see here, we have the overview field analysis. We have max number of characters. It seems like it's 2,500. So perhaps there's a ceiling in their system, and there is a minimum number of words. So based on my observation, is that it's only 8.3% missing fields. So perhaps we can use the overview for sentiment analysis, or we can use it to enrich our vector space. So also we have the mean, which is 752, and median. So it's right skewed. So it could be suggest that there is people are trying to provide more detailed information, but perhaps they're being constrained. All right, so for the temporal dates, I decided to convert it to the regular date time, and I've converted it here. It was just open day 20 to 15, 10, 19, and it's a year, month, day in this setup. And from here, I noticed that I just decided to run the analysis for the date ranges. Over here, I just did the open date, close date, awarded date, and this is just observing what is the earliest. So the I just observed also the dates are 100% valid across all fields. There's no missing or malformed dates. There's also 5-year gap between the open date, and then date starts at 2014. However, it's being awarded in July 2019. So the earliest awarded date is in 2019. So that means there is a 5-year gap. Perhaps they were using a different system. Or perhaps they were migrating from different system, or they had a freeze for contract. As you can see here, this is just the frequency of the tenders opened over time. And you can see here is 2019, and then it started to open more tenders. But then here, when we look at the tenders awarded over time, it seems like the awarded only started at 2019, and the frequency, I guess it reflects yeah, so this is just the awarded frequency. So there was a minimum activity, mild, massive point activity, and sustained high activity. So moving on to another observation I noticed with this data set is that we have a minimum of, now this is, I did a calculation between open and to close duration, and they're close to award duration, and open to award duration. So when I compared these, I found negative values for the close to award duration and open to award duration. You can see here these negative values. So that means that it's opened before, closed and then opened again, the same, or it's awarded but then opened again. So therefore it becomes negative. So this is weird. So I've investigated further, and I found out that it could be there is a panel agreement. It's pre-approved, and then they just remind them to open the make a new posting, and then it could be that it's an emergency contract, and then they already awarded word of mouth, and then they open it again, and then all standing offers, and yeah, so or perhaps a data migration. Okay, so financial analysis, we noticed that the total records here, we noticed that the mean number that is given is $3 million, and the maximum number is $2.6 billion, which amounts to $12 billion paid by the New Zealand government. So just to visualize them, we can notice here the distribution, the but a good amount of them is falls, like here is most contracts falls under 100K to 1 million range, and which has a long tail exceeding to the right. That's thanks to that 2 billion contract. Now, also we notice that there's roughly is a normal distribution here, and this is the bottom left. And when we look at here the box plot, we notice that these outliers at the top, including the 2.6 mega contract, this one here, and they are mostly buried under the zero due to the high zeros. Also, another thing I'd like to point out is that it seems like there is a lot of zeros in in the data set, and that is perhaps for privacy concerns, or they don't want to disclose it, but it's okay, it's not in the scope of our project. So yeah, so moving on to the most active agencies, these are the most active tenders. Seems like the Ministry of Education takes a big chunk at 27%, and the rest goes down all the way, and so on. So here's just a visualize for the top 20, top 15, and this is the top 15 agencies spendings. We are not really concerned with the money, as we just want to predict the words itself, but it's just we're exploring it for fun, just to see what is happening. Now, if we look at the tender type for RFX type distribution, we notice that there's a lot of there's a significant in terms of the request for tenders and the request for proposals, and but then there's very little for award notice. And now here's the thing: for requests for tenders, requests for proposals, we just need to double check how the sentiment about it, does it sound differently. But for embedding, perhaps we should exclude the award notice, because one is very small percentage and two is likely formulaic, which means perhaps contract was awarded to XYZ Corp for X amount of dollars. Anyway, so this is probably correlate with our negative. This perhaps correlates with our negative duration records. And for the competition type, there's two types of competition. There's open competition and closed competition. This is not entirely related to our scope, but it's nice to know. We can cover that. And then there is different types of tender coverage distribution, sole agency, all of the government, and so on, cluster, synced opportunity. Yeah, so the artifacts ID analysis, my just want to direct your attention is that it's a unique identifier. It's a primary key. So that means we can use it to relate to another table. And the we are checking for duplicates. There is no duplicates. And artifacts ID temporal pattern analysis. Seems like there's no pattern. Yeah, it's just randomly generated. And then for the key insights and recommendation, you notice I just wrote different recommendation about the data set overview, and it's just some different data. But here's my key insights, the final rapid. is text field has excellent coverage for suitable. Overview field provides details context and has some missing values. Average title length is appropriate for embedding models, perhaps overview and embedding. So it seems very highly suitable. So that is about it for the first part of the EDA. Please have a look at the description and get your hands dirty. Happy coding, guys.